The bells of King's Landing had not rung with joy in many months, yet on this gray morning, their solemn peal carried over the city like a sigh too long held. Sea mists drifted through the Blackwater rush, dulling the charred stones of the Red Keep so that its towers seemed carved from ash. Inside the Tower of the Hand a single brazier burned, the flame licking weakly at coal still wet from last night's rain, as if even the fire itself sensed the hush clinging to the capital. Lord Davos Seaworth stood by the narrow window, fingering the knucklebone pouch hanging at his belt. He watched a pair of ravens circle the distant spires before banking southward toward the sea, black wings beating against a sky the color of hammered lead. Across the chamber, Tyrion Lannister paced, a map of the Seven Kingdoms spread on the table and pinned at the corners by wine cups, left to stain concentric rings. The hand of the Queen, once hand of the King, twice broken by war and grief, moved small lacquered markers across gilded coastlines. One carved dragon, red paint flaking, perched above Dragonstone. Another, a white wolf fashioned of mountain pine, guarded Winterfell. Davos saw Tyrion's fingers hesitate over the Stormlands, where no sigil marker waited. A patch of empty parchment there seemed to breathe with possibilities, and each exhale chilled Davos' "You have news," Tyrion said at last without looking up. His voice was hoarse, worn thin by too many negotiations, and too little sleep. Davos answered. A gull arrived at Massey's Hook 2 nights past, bearing a letter inked in Bravos. It spoke of a prince calling himself Aegon Targaryen, the 6th of his name. Then so. Tyrion's mismatched eyes flicked toward him, sharpened by something between curiosity and dread. Another pretender. Not so, if the letter speaks true. The lad claims to be the babe spirited away from the sack of King's Landing. Rhaegar and Elias' son, grown to manhood. He sails for Westeros with the Golden Company behind him. Davos drew in a breath. They have landed already. Griffin's roost fell without a cry. A hush heavier than bells filled the room. Outside, a cartwheel clattered across cobblestones, the sound of it muffled, distant. Tyrion sank onto a stool, the map crinkling beneath his elbows. Griffin's roost, he echoed, tasting the words for doom. If Connington's ancestral seat bends the knee, the Stormlands may follow. Or rise in rebellion, Davos countered. This prince, if prince he is, has come at a lucky hour. The realm is weary of dragons and wolves bickering over coronets. A new banner might seem cleaner to those who have bled. Cleaner, Tyrion muttered, until the washing shows old stains beneath. He reached for a flagon, found it empty, and set it down hard enough to raise dust. Daenerys will not like this. Nor Jon. At the name, Tyrion's gaze traveled northward across the parchment sea to the Painted Wolf. Snow has not sat the throne even a year, he said. Hard work yet undone. Harvests uneven, lords uncertain whether to call him king or consort. And now comes a dragon hatchling long thought dead with sellswords for claws. Ships too, Davos added. 50 of them, maybe more. Tyrion's shoulders sagged. 50 ships cannot storm King's Landing. King's Landing is but one crowned, Davos answered. The small folk of the Reach and Riverlands still count their dead from the long night. They remember famine. They remember wildfire in the streets. Give them a different hope, and they may march all the same. He touched the pouch of bones again, as if to reassure himself of truths carved long ago. I have known many kings, my lord. The throne is a magnet for woes. Tyrion rubbed his temples. Send riders to Dragonstone. The queen must return at once. Davos hesitated. And the king in the north? A single bark of laughter escaped Tyrion, humorless. He is no longer in the north, Davos. He is in my sister's old bedchamber, staring at columns of tallied debts. He is a king who hates crowns and fills his evenings debating grain tithes in council. Tell him, yes. But Daenerys first. Tyrion's voice faltered. She still believes prophecy bends for love. Better she hear of this boy from trusted lips. On Dragonstone, the sea groaned like a wounded beast beneath the castle cliffs, waves smashing against black rock buttresses. Daenerys Stormborn walked alone along the stone drum's highest parapet, her silver-gold braid whipped sideways by the wind. A pale cloak embroidered with three-headed dragons snapped behind her, threads catching on rampart crenellations that remembered generations of Valyrian rule. Far below, Drogon dozed curled atop the charred remains of the old siege catapults, wings mantled tight, smoke curling lazily from his nostrils with each breath. Viserion's death in the Great War had left a hollow in her chest that no crown could fill. Rhaegal's egg still lay unhatched in its cradle of coals, another silent reminder. Though the maesters insisted warmth and patience might yet coax life from stone, she placed a gloved palm upon her belly as if to feel flame rather than mortal hunger. And she wondered when last she had eaten more than bread. The clatter of boot leather echoed up the stair. Missandei emerged, cheeks flushed with haste. "A raven from the capital, your grace." "Read it." Missandei's brown eyes flicked across the parchment. "A sellsword fleet has seized Griffin's Roost. They proclaim Prince Aegon, son of Rhaegar, as the true heir of Aerys." Daenerys' breath caught. She closed her eyes, and for a moment she was a girl again in the manse at Bravos, Viserys clutching her wrist, whispering mad hopes. "My brother's firstborn dies upon a wall," he had sworn, his voice trembling with remembered terror. Mother and sister butchered, babe dashed against a stone. Now another voice spoke across the years, louder than Viserys' broken assurances. The voice of Magister Illyrio, oily with secrets. Aegon, he had told Tyrion, lives. Dany had dismissed it as intrigue. She opened her eyes to wind and horizon. "Send word to Jon." The name felt strange on her tongue, laden with heat and ice, though their marriage had forged more than politics between them. "Tell him to meet me at Griffin's Bay. If a dragon's egg hatches in the wrong hearth, best we quench the fire before it spreads." "Shall I send for the Khalasar?" Missandei asked. "Not yet." Daenerys turned from the sea. "One egg may prove false. I would see the shell myself." The riverland slept fitfully under spring drizzle. Jon Snow, once Lord Commander, once king in the north, now consort to a dragon queen, rode beneath the bare willows flanking the trident-swollen banks. Ghost loped ahead, white fur matted by rain. The direwolf paused often, nose lifted, as though he scented memories drifting with the mist. The echoes of Robert Baratheon's hammer, of a crown lying twisted in the mud. Jon's cloak weighed heavy with damp. The black cells of the Red Keep had been his prison once. The Iron Throne, his shock. But the tasks of rebuilding demanded more of him than either. He bore them without complaints aloud, yet every ledger reminded him of soldiers unfed, of farmsteads ruined by the dead and the living alike. 7 years of war had taught Jon that victory tasted of ashes if peace did not soon follow. He meant to see it follow. He reined up as hooves splashed behind him. Ser Gendry Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End, closed the distance, armor clinking. "Your Grace," Gendry called over the rain. "A rider from Dragonstone reached our column. The Queen summons us to the coast." Jon urged his stallion beside Gendry's. "For what cause?" "A prince," Gendry said almost apologetically. "Aegon Tuan." Jon stared. Young Griff. He remembered the tale told among free folk at Castle Black, filtered through coin-clinking merchants. A boy with purple eyes sailing west, half myth, half myth. And he has landed. With the Golden Company. They hold Griffin's Roost. Jon exhaled a plume of breath and rain. "Then we ride for the coast." Gendry nodded, water dripping from his helm's antlers. "I will gather the men." As Gendry wheeled away, Jon looked to Ghost, who gazed back with eyes burning red amidst the gray. "We will see another war," Jon murmured. "And we've only just buried the last." Ghost's only answer was a low rumble, half growl, half lament. By twilight the wind-swept port of Storm's End echoed with hammer strikes as carpenters refitted masts and tightened rigging. Fires gleamed on the horizon, flickering against clouds like beacons for ancient gods. Beneath the castle's drum tower, Arianne Martell watched sailors haul barrels of Dornish wine aboard a red-sailed cog, Her hood was heavy with beads of seawater, though underneath her eyes sparkled with more than salt. 3 moon doors ago she had stood in Sunspear's windy terrace, reading a letter delivered by a sellsword so sunburnt his cheeks peeled. It had spoken of a boy promised to unite Sunspear and Griffin's Roost under one dragon banner, and then silence, years of it, until now. Aegon Targaryen had been a dream, flickering like candlelight on water. But storms make phantoms real. Footsteps splashed behind her. Sir John Connington, his red-dyed hair gone to silver at the edges, stood with hands clasped rigid at his back. "The prince awaits you, my lady." Arianne brushed stray drops from her lips. "Is he certain of this courtship? We have never met." "You sailed north on his word," Connington reminded gently. "He owes you more than a meeting." She followed him up the plank onto the cog. On the quarterdeck, a figure in a damp cloak gazed over the dark sea. He turned as they approached, taller than she expected, with the lean grace of a dancer. His hair, black as iced nightfall, curled damp on his forehead, and his eyes, her breath caught, deep wells of amethyst, framed by lashes too dark to be anything but Targaryen. A great many men had looked at Arianne Martell with intrigue, desire, or condescension. This man looked upon her as if she were a star he had steered by, and feared to find dimmed. He bowed, strands of hair sweeping forward. "Princess of Dorne," he said, "I am Aegon, and I have longed to meet the woman bold enough to weave kingdoms together." She studied the fortune in his face. The long Valyrian plains, the stubborn Martell chin said to echo his mother's. "If you truly are Elia's son, you inherit her courtiers' honeyed tongues," Arianne replied. "But I was promised more than flattery." "You mean to claim the throne?" "Mean." He straightened. "Not merely mean, I will." Lightning flashed, a white sword drawn across the sky, and in it she saw a vision of the Iron Throne wrapped in banners of red and gold and black. "Westeros is adrift between 2 rulers. One carries dragonfire. The other wears Winter's crown. Both have saved the realm, yet they quarrel over seats and titles while small folk starve." "Some would call that pragmatic ruling," Arianne said. "Others treason." Aegon's voice softened. "When your father sent me ships and gold, he hoped to see his sister avenged. Elias' blood cries for justice still, but I learned from my tutors that vengeance builds no city. I return for the realm, not for wrath." "Bender sour." Connington cleared his throat, raindrops streaking his beard. "Lord, the captains await." Aegon nodded, and Arianne glimpsed resolve carved as deep as any sword of the morning's oath. "Come south with me," he said to her. "When I set foot in King's Landing, you will stand at my side. The realm must see Dorne's allegiance plain. Perhaps I wish to weigh all claimants first." She countered. "Ice, fire, or twilight? Let me judge." Aegon smiled. "A curve gentle as harbors after storms. Then travel with me, watch with your own eyes, and judge." Arianne turned to the rail, rain spattering her palms. South, the sky burned with the last embers of sunset, red enough to dye banners crimson. She answered without turning. "Very well, Prince. I will watch the dance to its end." Across churning seas, Dragonstow's harbor lanterns bobbed as Queen Daenerys' fleet cast ropes and raised anchors. Rain hissed on iron and sailcloth alike. Within her cabin, Daenerys sat at a small desk, parchment spread before her, ink shining in candlelight. She read Tyrion's missive again, half strategy, half warning. The words scratched hastily in the dwarf's cramped hand. A knock sounded. Grey Worm entered, helm tucked beneath one arm, unsullied spear-tip gleaming. "Our spies report the Golden Company marches north from Griffin's Roost," he said. "They avoid Storm's End, but rally smaller keeps along the Rainwood Road. By week's end, they may reach the Roserat." Daenerys pressed cool fingertips to her temple. "Jon will intercept them on the coast. We must keep them from the fertile heartlands. If the reach tips, so goes the grain. We will face them with unsullied discipline." Grey Worm declared. "That may not be enough." She folded the letter. "This prince may command hearts as much as swords. He bears a name people remember with love. And he has Connington. The old lords of the Stormlands will answer. Grey Worm's gaze never wavered. Your dragons. Drogon can destroy armies. She finished for him. But fire alone cannot win this peace. I cannot win by breaking wheels, if the spokes are hearts that loved another prince. She rose and moved to the porthole. Rain-streaked glass blurred her reflection into ghostly silver outline. Perhaps I should have listened to Tyrion sooner. Perhaps we rule a land still haunted by promises older than either of us. Jon says the North remembers. The South remembers too. Grey Worm bowed. What is remembered can be reshaped. Daenerys allowed herself a faint smile. You speak as a commander of men, not a philosopher. I speak as someone who has seen you reshape worlds. She looked upon him with gratitude. Silence settled, broken only by waves slapping hulls. Have the Dothraki scouts ready at dawn, she said, and send for Melisandre. Grey Worm blinked. The Red Woman? She has not been seen since the long night. She will come. Daenerys replied, though she was not certain. If prophecies stir, she will find her way. From the deck of the Sea Dreamer, Jon Snow watched faint torch fires burn along the coast. Each keep a star flickering behind curtains of rain. The wind carried scents of wet cedar and distant cooking fires. He thought of Winterfell's kitchens after snowfall, of bread and onion soup, of voices echoing across stone halls. He missed the north with an ache sharper than blade or frostbite, yet duty chained him south. Sir Davos joined him, cloak pulled tight. Rains bless our voyage, though old sailors say such blessings carry hidden costs. Jon cracked a smile. A man who sailed Blackwater Bay during the siege fears rain. Rain washes blood from decks, Davos said. But it does not wash ghosts. He leaned against the rail. I stood with Stannis when he spoke of rightful kings. Saw where that path led. Jon glanced at the dark tide. You think I follow the same? I think you and the Queen seek to mend a kingdom that may no longer fit old patterns. Davos shrugged. Aegon may fit those patterns, or he may tear them deeper. Either way, small folk will pay. Jon's hand tightened on the rail until knuckles whitened. I must speak with him. If he grants a parley, he will. A man who claims to love the realm will not refuse talk. Davos nodded slowly. Then speak plain, lad, and keep your sword close. Ghost appeared at Jon's side, silent as snowfall, eyes gleaming beneath the lantern glow. Jon stroked the wolf's fur, feeling grounded. The sea beyond rolled, relentless and unknowable, like fate itself. He whispered a vow to the wind that had once carved oaths upon his heart. No more needless deaths. The wind gave no answer but rain. Night fell upon the Blackwater with a hush deeper than bells. Tyrion Lannister stood on the ruined parapet of Maegor's Holdfast, watching the city lights flicker in puddles below. The dragons were gone, the wolves had sailed, and he was alone with memories of wildfire and cloying smoke. He recalled the day Stannis' ships burned, how he had stood atop the city walls and thought himself hero, and how swiftly heroism curdled to terror when the chain snapped and fire blossomed green across the tide. Footsteps sloshed through water pooled between broken stones. Brienne of Tarth approached, golden cloak heavy with damp. She carried Oathkeeper sheathed at her hip, and her brow creased with quiet concern. My lord? My lady, Tyrion corrected absently, then shook his head. Forgive. Old courtesies vanish when new wars loom. You have scouted the Roserad. Brienne nodded. Bandits prey on farmers, but no sign yet of the Golden Company. Still, word spreads. Refugees flee north toward Bitterbridge. Tyrion sighed. So the panic flowers. He rubbed his eyes. I once thought winning the throne meant peace. Instead, it is a seat that grows daggers wherever one rests. Men know. Brienne looked out over the city. Wars don't end because a king dies or a queen ascends. Not here. No, Tyrion agreed. Not in Westeros, yet we persist. Lightning flared, illuminating them both in stark white relief. Tyrion saw his shadow stretch twisted across the stones, as if his dwarf's frame sought to grow into a giant. "We will need allies," he said. "Perhaps even ones we once scorned." Brienne's lips thinned. "You mean the Ironborn?" Tyrion chuckled without mirth. "Gods, no. I meant the Tyrell remnants, the Blackwoods, even the Freys without a house." He gestured to the darkness. "But if Aegon advances, and if the Stormlands rally, then Ironborn raiders may decide the kingdom ripe for pilfering. We must prepare for that as well." Brienne rested a gauntleted hand on the stonework. "You bear many burdens, my lord." He turned to her. "I am small, yet my burdens loom tall. Such is the irony of my life." After a heartbeat, he added softly, "Thank you, Sir Brienne, for standing guard." She inclined her head. "For the realm," she said simply. Tyrion blew a long breath. "For the realm," he echoed, though the words tasted bitter. Somewhere in the city, a babe began to cry, and the queen's hand listened until the wail faded into the hush of waiting dawn. Distant storms marched west, thunder crackling like drums. On the deck of the Sun Chaser, Prince Aegon stood wrapped in a cloak of dark purple, the dragon's sigil embroidered over his heart, a three-headed emblem unblemished by coal smoke or ash. The Golden Company standards fluttered behind him, crossed elephants and spears gleaming in lamplight. General Harry Strickland stepped forward, white blonde hair plastered to his brow. "Our outriders report the Roserat ahead is clear," Strickland said, "but Storm's End bulks to starboard. Lord Baratheon has not declared." Aegon's jaw tightened. "He is a friend to Queen Daenerys, but friends may be swayed by right and mercy." Strickland pressed lips thin. "Mercy rarely sways castles. Gold, perhaps. Then we pay in promises." Aegon's gaze roamed stars glimmering through rent clouds. "When I sit the throne, I will name Gendry legitimate Lord Paramount of the Stormlands. Let him see a future where he need not bend knee to dragons or wolves." "And now?" Strickland bowed his head. "As you command, your grace. But we should not tarry. Every dawn brings ships at our stern." Aegon closed his eyes. In darkness he pictured Connington standing one step behind, ever vigilant. Arianne near, fierce as the sun. And Ghost, his mother's voice, his aunt's laughter, faces of Dornish allies slain in the narrow sea crossing. He carried them all. Each ghost whispered different counsel, but all whispered urgency. "Set sail," he said. "We make for Storm's End." Then more softly, as if to himself, "May the gods grant we find reason before blood." But the sea kept its own counsel, silent save for waves slapping wood. Rain ceased, leaving the air raw and laden with the smell of turned earth. In a torchlit tent pitched on the cliffs overlooking Shipbreaker Bay, Jon and Daenerys met at last. The queen's hair clung damp to her cheeks, yet her eyes blazed bright. Jon touched her hand, calloused fingers brushing silver rings. "I came as swift as the tides," he said. "And I," she breathed. "The realm teeters." She handed him Tyrion's message. He read it, frowning deeper with every line. "Aegon presses Storm's End," Jon muttered. "If Gendry falls, the Stormlands swing." Daenerys' voice trembled just enough for him to hear fear beneath steel. "He may be my nephew." Jon lifted his gaze. "Rhaegar's son, raised in hiding." She nodded. "Viserys said he died, but Viserys believed many lies." Jon set the parchment aside. "It changes little. We must see him." "Speak. Speak." She echoed, eyes meeting his. "But will words outweigh swords?" Jon squeezed her hand. "We have stood before the dead and lived. This battle we can win without steel, if we remember why we fight." Outside the flap billowed. Drogon roared somewhere beyond the cliffs, his cry a note of warning stretching across land and sea alike. The sound threaded through their hearts, a tremor of past and future colliding. Daenerys rose, fingers trailing from Jon's. "At dawn we parley. If Aegon seeks peace, we find path. If not..." She looked toward the dark high sky where stars glinted above storm clouds. "We end the quarrel before it grows." Jon stood, cloak swaying, Together, their shadows merged in the torchlight, wolf and dragon entwined, as wind whipped around the tent and whispered of morning yet to come, morning heavy with promise and with peril. Oh, ah! Dawn seeped like pale wine across the ramparts of Storm's End, brushing the wet stone with a timid gold. On the narrow beach below the gates, tide lines glimmered silver, braided with fallen oak leaves carried from the rainwood. Daenerys stood at the foot of the causeway, her cloak unmoving despite the gusts that rolled in off Shipbreaker Bay. To either side of her stretched a cordon of unsullied spears grounded, faces inscrutable beneath crested helms. Drogon circled high overhead, a sable comet against soft morning, his wing beats sounding like the pulse of drums half a world away. Jon Snow had come down from the castle inner ward alone save for Ghost, whose white fur rippled under the wind. Jon's dark leathers bore salt stains from the night's mist. He wore no crown, only long claw at his hip, and the memories of too many fields gone red. His gray eyes shifted to the east where the incoming force approached. A single banner of purple silk fringed in gold, bearing the three-headed dragon of old Valyria, overlaid with a comet tail of silver. Beneath it rode Aegon Targaryen. The supposed prince kept his entourage small. Jon counted 5, though the shadow of more horsemen lingered on the road beyond the dunes. At Aegon's left rode Jon Connington, pale-haired and proud despite the rain-spotted cloak on his shoulders. At the prince's right glided Arianne Martell, atop a hot-blooded sand steed, whose coat gleamed almost copper in the dawn. Behind them General Harry Strickland and 2 Myrish crossbowmen trotted at a respectful distance. Hooves slowed on wet sand. Aegon dismounted first. He moved with sure grace, yet his boots sank half a finger deep. This beach devoured kings and beggars all the same. He removed his helm, letting black curls spill loose, and walked forward until only 3 paces separated him from Daenerys and Jon. The hush that settled felt like an indrawn breath. Guard and ripple of water. A single wave crashed, spent its fury, and slid away with a hiss. Aegon inclined his head. Aunt, cousin. Daenerys lifted her chin a fraction. Up close, the young man's resemblance to Rhaegar was startling. The same melancholic eyes, the half-smile that hinted at music heard in secret. Yet Aegon's jaw bore a Martell sharpness, and the salt he carried smelled of Braavosi harbors, not King's Landing proper. "You come unarmored," she observed. "I come to talk," he replied. "Steel speaks quickly. We have all heard enough of quick words." "Bah!" Jon's voice, low and even, carried across the sand. "The Golden Company is not known for parley." Aegon met the stare without flinching. "The world is not known for miracles, yet I stand here." Connington raised a hand, meaning to speak, but Aegon's subtle shake stilled him. The prince's gaze lingered on Drogon's silhouette wheeling overhead. "If I sought war, I would have filled this shore with sellswords and scorpions. I brought none. My legion camps 10 miles south, awaiting my signal." Daenerys studied him. "Why seize Griffin's Roost if peace is your wish? Because a prince with no hearth commands no ear. Griffin's Roost was mine by birthright through Jon Connington, my father's dearest friend, and it fell without blood. I accepted its fealty so I might speak to you as near equals." Wind snapped her cloak. "Near. Near enough," Aegon said, and there was humility in the words that drew Connington's brows tight with pride. "No mortal stands equal to the mother of dragons, but the realm needs more than awe. It needs grain, law, and mercy, enough to silence grief. I intend to give those, without subjecting Westeros to another war of brothers." "Mendersaw. Mercy is hard for sellswords," Jon said. "Harder still if coin runs low." Strickland spoke then, his tone precise. "The Golden Company keeps its promises." Jon shrugged. "Until a heavier purse appears." The sellsword commander opened his mouth, but Aegon halted him with a palm. "We come with elephants and spears, true. Yet gold alone did not drive us across the narrow sea. I have pledged the treasury of Braavos to pay every captain, whether the throne becomes mine or dust. The coin is secured. Only purpose remains. Bender. Daenerys felt Drogon's distant rumble echo in her breastbone. And your purpose spells treason. Treason is only the name survivors give the fallen. Aegon answered. Voice quiet. I do not wish you to fall, Aunt. I would rather see you rise beside me, as Rhaegar surely intended for his kin. The realm might bear 2 dragons if we guide them with a single hand. Joan's gloved fingers tightened around Ghost's fur. A single hand. You, Aegon said, turning to him. The songs speak already of a wolf who guarded the realm against night everlasting. Let that wolf be the hand that sets 2 crowns upon one throne, forging them into something unbreakable. Nenda no. Daenerys stiffened. He would serve you? He would serve Westeros. Aegon's gaze held Jon's. You have no hunger for a chair of swords, cousin. I have no gift for leading armies against the dead. Between us, the realm could heal. Jon's throat worked. You presume much. Because time is thin, Aegon replied. Every harvest misses hands lost to war. Every widow's tears eat at stone foundations. We cannot spend another decade exchanging sieges. Let us share. Daenerys felt the flare of old fear, of being bartered, of losing the one foundation she had fought oceans to win. But pride alone would not mend kingdoms. She exhaled, sending mist into the morning. Share how? Hold a council at Storm's End, Aegon said. Let the great lords weigh our claims side by side. Baratheon, Martell, Arryn, Tully, Greyjoy, even what remains of Tyrell. Let them see us, question us, judge us. Whomever the council chooses shall reign, and the other shall pledge fealty, binding the realm by oath. His words settled like stones dropped into still water, sending rings wider than the eye. Jon studied Daenerys, and in his gaze she read the weight of all they had endured, the price of rejecting such a chance. Yet she saw the glint of caution too, the knowledge that councils could be bent by whispered lies and quiet blades. Her silence stretched. Drogon's shadow crossed the sunlit sand. Unsullied remained statues, but the prince's men shifted, uneasy. Finally, Daenerys answered. A dragon does not submit to cages forged of parchment, but a queen may listen. Aegon inclined his head again. Listening is all I ask today. Jon spoke. We agree to a council, yet Storm's End is Gendry's seat. He must assent. Then let us request his hall, Aegon said. Neutral ground. Jon gestured to Davos, who had stepped onto the beach unnoticed. Sir Davos will carry word to Lord Gendry. If the council is refused, negotiations end. Accepted, Aegon replied. Until then, my army remains encamped. No forward march, no raids. We will purchase food from local villages at fair price. Damn? Daenerys' eyes narrowed. Your word. My bond, said Aegon. She turned away, beginning the walk back up the shingle causeway. Jon followed, Ghost padding at his heels. When she reached the steps that cut through Storm's End's outer wall, she looked over her shoulder once more. Aegon remained below, watching her depart. He looked neither victorious nor defiant, merely patient, as though this beach were but the first page in a very long chronicle he trusted would favor him. The chill she felt then was not of wind. It was the sensation of fate splitting like an unforked river, forced suddenly over stone. That afternoon Storm's End woke from its wary quiet. Ravens flew north, south, and west. Doves flapped eastward toward Dragonstone. Inside the great drum tower hall, Gendry Baratheon received Daenerys, Jon, Davos, and Tyrion, who arrived powdered in road dust. The young lord listened to their account in sober silence. Thick forearms crossed over a Baratheon surcoat, newly stitched with a crowned stag hammer. When the telling ended, he said, I've no love for sellswords prowling my marches, but I've less still for endless wars. If a council keeps the storm from rolling, I lend my hearth. Tyrion nodded, relief plain. We will draft invites by sunset. Gendry's gaze lingered on Jon. He offers to legitimize me? Jon answered, He claims he will. And you? I already did, Jon reminded softly, recalling the decree he and Daenerys had signed in the Red Keep some moons ago. Our word stands, council or no. A slow breath left Gendry's chest, carrying with it the last shards of hesitation. Then let them come. But hear me. If one sword is drawn within my walls, I will hammer the throne to nails myself. No one doubted him. That night, the castle swelled, unsullied quartered in the guard barracks. Golden Company officers pitched silk pavilions in a meadow beyond the moat. Between the two encampments stretched a broad lane patrolled jointly by Dothraki outriders and Aegon's Braavosi marines, an uneasy corridor where each torch cast long shadows of past grievances. Within the keep, chambers were apportioned. Daenerys took the Storm Queen's solar high in the sea tower, Jon the lesser bedchamber, once favored by Renly. Tyrion claimed a scribe's loft, crammed with old ledger scrolls, muttering that he preferred parchment to politics, for parchment at least lay still when stabbed. As the castle settled, a hush familiar to veteran soldiers seeped in. The hush before a battle none wished for but all scented in the wind. After midnight, Jon wandered the western parapet. Sea air brushed his cheeks, carrying the iron taste of distant squalls. Ghost trotted beside him, occasionally stopping to nose the crenels. Below, the flicker of campfires stitched orange beads into black cloth. He recognized Aegon's banner among them, furled but still visible in the torchlight. 3 heads waiting to be woken. Footsteps. Jon turned to see Davos approach, cloak drawn tight. Couldn't sleep either? Davos asked. Storm's End is too quiet, Jon replied. I half expect Stannis' shadow to stride through the courtyard. Davos grimaced at the memory. That lord died with his daughter, and honor. Jon considered that. Honor never truly dies. It only changes hands. Menson. Davos eyed him. You sound like Eddard Stark tonight. Jon said nothing. He looked back at the camps. Do you believe him? This prince? I believe he believes, Davos said. May be enough. May not. If he's genuine, Jon murmured. Perhaps the realm gains even if he loses. A throne claimed by the rightful queen, but tempered by a cousin's conscience. And if he wins? Davos countered. Jon smiled, though it did not reach his eyes. Then Stark honor passes to him. We swore to serve the realm. Nain? Davos studied Jon's face, lines etched by white knights in the frozen north. That's a heavy cloak for one man, heavier when soaked by blood. Jon laid a hand on Ghost's head. I learned long ago that blood is the ink in which crowns sign their laws. He exhaled. But maybe, this once we can write in water. The water below answered only with ceaseless crash and draw. At first light trumpets sounded. Riders from the east. Melisandre arrived cloaked in sunset silk. Her red eyes distant, as if she surveyed 2 realms at once. Grey Worm met her at the gate. Tyrion escorted her to Daenerys, and soon the queen's solar glowed scarlet beneath shuttered windows. What words passed inside none could say, but by the time Melisandre emerged, her expression was both troubled and fierce, as though prophecy had shown her knots more tangled than any she had unraveled before. Meanwhile, invitations flew cross-country on hard-driven wings. The Vale answered first, Lady Sansa Stark sending Sir Robin Arryn south, under banners quartered Argent Moon and Direwolf. From Riverrun came Lady Edmure with a small escort of Blackwood archers. Even the Iron Islands dispatched a delegate. Lady Asha sailing hard and fast with 2 longships, salted wind promising mischief. The reach proved slowest, fractured still by hunger and grief. 3 minor lords each claimed to speak for fields too sparse to feed their people. Yet they came all the same, hoping grain, gold, or guidance would follow whichever monarch triumphed. 6 days passed. The council's opening drew near, and Storm's End heaved like a forge bellows feeding a blade yet to be struck. One evening Jon sought Daenerys atop the sea tower's windy balcony. She stood alone, staring north where storm clouds boiled violet above far scarps. The egg of Rhaegal lay cradled in a ring of copper braziers, each coal glowing cherry red. Any change? Jon asked gently. None. She ran fingers along faint green veins in the stone shell. It feels heavier, yet still cold at heart. Jon touched her shoulder. We have time. Do we? A hint of tears mirrored starlight in her eyes. Aegon claims heritage backed by half the realm's songs. I claim survival bought in blood. Which rings sweeter to lords who bury sons? You claim justice, Jon said. A throne earned through service, not just birth. And he claims both. She drew a shaky breath. If the council turns, I will bend the knee. I vowed to break the wheel, not become it. Jon's surprise flashed, but swiftly shifted to understanding. You say it, yet I fear the cost to your heart. She met his gaze. I have lost dragons, cities, and brothers. If I must lose a crown to keep peace, let it be. Jon brushed a lock of silver hair from her brow. If that day comes, I stand beside you. Crown or no. Then? Her lips parted in gratitude, but before words formed, a roar split the night. Drogon streaked past the balcony, banking sharply, eyes blazing molten gold. From the camps below rose shouts, then the clang of alarm bells. Jon and Daenerys raced down spiral stairs to the outer rampart. Flames flickered near the Golden Company's encampment. By their orange flare, Jon saw shadowy figures vaulting ditch walls, blades glinting. Saboteurs! Grey Worm shouted, marshalling Unsullied. Daenerys scanned the chaos, then turned to Jon. I'll send Drogon to scatter them. He gripped her arm. Too risky. The infiltrators might be Aegon's enemies aiming to frame him. Her jaw clenched. Or his men testing our guard. Either way, let me cross the field first. If I speak his name, perhaps they yield. Daenerys hesitated but nodded. Jon sprinted down the switchback stairs, Ghost bounding ahead like pale thunder. Reaching the causeway, he crossed the moat bridge at full run. Unsullied raced past him. Shields raised. Among flickering tents he saw shapes grappling. A Golden Company sergeant bleeding from a slash. An Unsullied spearman thrusting to defend the fallen man. Elsewhere, mounted Dothraki wheeled. Lariat swinging to snare a hooded intruder crawling under canvas. Jon bellowed above clamor. Yield! In the name of King Jon Snow and Queen Daenerys Targaryen, yield. The fighting slowed, confused. One hood dropped. Jon spotted the narrow beard and sunburnt cheeks of a Myrish sellsword. But what stunned him more was the sigil stitched on the man's collar. 3 tears centered on a silver chalice. The badge of House Strickland's personal retinue. Sabotage, Jon muttered. From within, Ghost tackled the sellsword, pinning him to mud. Jon strode forward, sword still sheathed. Why strike your own? The captive spat blood. Orders. Not his, another wants war. Another who? The man's eyes darted toward the bay. Black ships, he whispered, then stiffened, a crossbow bolt sprouting from his back. He slumped, dead. Jon looked across tents toward a ridge, where a cloaked figure lowered a crossbow and fled into shadow. Unsullied pursued but returned empty-handed. By dawn the camp lay tense but calm. 10 were dead, dozens wounded, nearly all Golden Company. Tyrion investigated, Melisandre at his side, and uncovered charred sigils of Essosi creditors, burned in a makeshift pyre near the water. The message seemed clear. Someone wished to sever Aegon's purse, forcing him to pillage, igniting war. When news reached Aegon, his fury rattled Storm's End windows. Yet he swallowed anger and met Daenerys and Jon in the council chamber, face pale with resolve. This was not my hand, he swore. Connington vouched. Strickland nodded, though his eyes darted, uneasy. Daenerys said, your sellsword died naming black ships. Aegon looked to Asha Greyjoy, who had just arrived and stood drenched in salt spray. Her grin flashed white. Don't look at me, boy. My sails carry kraken, gold on green. Black sails are Euron's hobby, and he's fish food. Tyrion tapped the map. The Iron Isles still birth reavers lacking your scruples, my lady. Asha shrugged. True. Still not my doing. Jon addressed the table. Who benefits from open war? Some reach lords pine for vengeance. The Westerlands simmer over lost mines. Old enemies of dragons. Now, Melisandre's voice floated like ember smoke. When shadows dance, light both reveals and deceives. Seek not only the foe who strikes but the friend who fails to guard the candle. A chill frosted the chamber's spine. In the days that followed, investigation tangled in half-truths. A surviving infiltrator confessed to coin, stamped with a rose above crossed quills, the sigil of House Hightower's merchant guild. Yet the man expired before implicating a master. Lords of Old Town protested innocence, claiming pirates forged such marks to sully reputations. The first session of the Great Council convened regardless. Benches rimmed the hall in concentric arcs. Lords Aaron and Tully took seats left of the Storm's End dais. Lady Asha lounged rearward, boots on a railing. Princess Arianne sat near Aegon, her necklaces catching torchlight. Brienne of Tarth stood sentinel behind Tyrion, steel blue eyes scanning for treachery. Jon and Daenerys entered together, though Daenerys walked a half-step ahead, an unspoken sign that she still held the rulership they had won. A hush fell deep enough to hear rain pattering on the slate roof high above. Gendry struck the butt of a warhammer upon stone 3 times. The lords and ladies assembled will hear claims. Tyrion rose first, unfurling a parchment bearing Daenerys' lineage, victories, and decrees serving common folk. His speech wove siege smoke and famine relief with threads of prophecy and survival. He painted her not as conqueror, but as deliverer, the breaker of chains who had crossed half the world to guard Westeros from eternal night. Only at the end did he mention blood right, and even then, merely to underline the cost already paid for that heritage. Applause rippled unevenly. Then Jon Connington stood. His voice, hoarse and edged with age, recounted visions of Elias Babe, the daring rescue by a smuggler knight, the years of exile teaching Aegon the tongues of men he would rule. Connington spoke of a prince who cleaned stables to learn humility, who studied the laws of Pentos by night, and who chose sellsword companionship, so he might know the hearts of the lowborn. He concluded by unfurling a silk scrap, a fragment of the blanket in which Elia had swaddled her son, saved all these years. Silence deeper than any applause swallowed the hall. Many wept, though whether for lost Elia or hope reborn none could say. Questions thundered next. Documentation? Witness? Prophecy? Numbers of host? Stores of grain? Measures to quell plague? Each camp answered with poise, yet cracks showed. Lords of the Riverlands pressed Aegon on Braavosi debt. Tyrell vassals grilled Daenerys on wildfire caches yet uncleared in King's Landing. Evening bled into moonrise. Gendry adjourned the first session, and ordered barrels of ale rolled into the courtyard so foes might drink side by side. Jon wandered there later, finding Robin Arryn staring up open-mouthed at Drogon circling dark sky. The sickly young lord clutched his cloak tight. Jon offered him mulled wine, and they spoke of sky cells and snow-kited cliffs until Robin calmed. Their quiet conversation drew attention. Murmurs of the Wolf King's kindness spread, a balm to rumors of northern aloofness. Inside the sea tower, Daenerys lay awake, listening to the hush after revelry faded. She rose, barefoot, and padded to the hearth where Rhaegal's egg rested among cooling coals. She lifted it. It felt hot now, hot enough to redden palms. A line like a hairline fracture traced one side. She gasped, nearly dropping it. As she steadied the egg, a faint sound reached her ears. The softest scraping, like talon on shell. Tears filled her vision, but a shadow moved in the doorway. Melisandre stood framed by ember glow. The dragon stirs, she whispered, and with him rise choices that cannot share one nest. Daenerys held the egg protectively. Will he hatch? He will, the Red Woman said, voice reverent. Yet know this. The world births its saviors sparingly, and never grants them ease. 3 heads has the dragon, but only 1 heart guides the flame. A heartbeat split in 2 invites silence. What are you saying? That you and the prince cannot both ride the storm. One must yield sky. Daenerys' hands trembled. A council will decide. Melisandre's eyes burned. Councils weigh grain, ships, and lineage. They do not weigh the will of fire. Trust your dragons, your grace. They alone know true silk from charlatan cloth. With that, she turned and drifted away like smoke. The crack upon the egg widened as if echoing the fracture in Daenerys' mind. Toward dawn, ravens brought dire tidings. A raid on a granary convoy bound for Storm's End. 30 wagons of reach grain torched, drivers slain. Eyewitnesses swore the attackers bore the crowned stag on black. But the markings were crude. Gendry's face blanched at the report. Someone would paint me kinslayer of bread, he muttered. By council's second morning, suspicion choked like dark fog. Debates became snarls. Accusations flew. In the Great Hall, Lord Edmure accused Oldtown of bribing raiders. Asha taunted Aeron for hiding behind cliffs while men died. A minor Westerlands knight spat that all Targaryens were fire-mad. Jon intervened repeatedly, calm voice soothing, though each time it cost him another measure of hope. During a pause, he pulled Aegon aside near the hearth. These provocations will sink your peace. Pull your men closer. Post mixed watches. Aegon's youthful face showed exhaustion older than his years. I have. Still daggers wander. He rubbed eyes rimmed red. My cousin, help me. Jon heard the plea's rawness. We will uncover the hand behind this. And if it is Strickland, Aegon whispered. His loyalty sold to other lenders? Jon looked over his shoulder at the Golden Company commander huddling with sellsword captains. Then you must prove a prince leads men, not merchandise. Night fell heavy. That very hour a storm crashed inland, lashing gates with salt and branches. Thunder boomed. Amid the gale, sentries atop the battlements glimpsed lanterns moving in the tree line. Grey Worm dispatched patrols. Connington doubled his. Yet under cover of squall, a figure scaled the south wall. Ghost scented intruder first. The direwolf's howl brought guards running. They cornered the climber in an empty granary, masked, clad in black oilskin. When torches flared, the prisoner attempted poison, but Arya Stark, newly arrived and unseen till then, darted from the shadows to slap the vial away. She held a dragonglass dagger to the stranger's throat. Pulling off the mask revealed a woman with cropped silver gold hair, Lannister pale. Under questioning, she confessed to a name. Lorelei Hill, bastard of Lannisport, agent of a secret cabal of Western merchants bankrolling saboteurs to destabilize both claimants so a third, pliable puppet could be installed. Who that puppet might be, she did not know. Her orders traveled through Lys, masked by spice caravans and silk guilds. Tyrion listened, poker-faced, while the prisoner detailed payments drawn on iron bank letters, but laundered through sept foundations. The hand felt a chill, deeper than sea wind. In those circuitous routes, he recognized the fingerprints of his brother Jaime's old banker friends, men who had fled when Lannister gold mines went dry. With resources scarce, they must now seek to profit from chaos. Gendry convened an emergency council before dawn. Lorelei was marched forward. Lords recoiled at the brand on her shoulder, an iron coin pierced by lion claws. Under oath, she repeated all. Shock rippled. Suspicion pivoted. Tyrell vassals and Old Town representatives exchanged uneasy looks. Both had long debts to Western lenders. Aegon seized the moment. Standing tall, face lit by torches, he addressed the hall. You see now, war is a market and we are merchandise. I refuse to be sold. He pointed to Lorelei. I grant this woman to the justice of the king and queen jointly, that none may claim my hand weighs heavier than theirs. Let them judge flame and snow as one. He turned to Daenerys, eyes shining. Aunt, stand with me. Let us burn the ledgers of those who trade crowns for copper. Something in Daenerys thawed. She stepped forward, Rhaegal's egg cradled in a sling at her waist. We stand together, in judgment. The gesture stunned the hall. Jon exhaled, relief swirling with caution. Lorelei, condemned by her own tongue, was led away. The council adjourned under uneasy truce, but a foundation had been laid. A shared enemy, faceless yet tangible. In the days following, investigative committees formed of mixed allegiance began scouring records, interviewing merchants, and tracking coin. Tyrion and Asha traced a line of ledgers to salt pans. Sansa's steward uncovered false tithes in Gulltown. Each discovery removed another stone from the house of cards built by Westerosi profiteers. Meanwhile, Daenerys and Aegon began holding joint audiences with affected villagers who had journeyed to Storm's End seeking aid. They listened, asked questions, and together ordered relief convoys dispatched under banners bearing both dragon sigils intertwined. The small folk cheered. Jon watched those audiences, pride flickering. Yet he saw the peril too. The more they succeeded side by side, the harder the final choice would grow. For either the council would crown them jointly, a union none could yet imagine, or eventually the tide would force one above the other. The crack on Rhaegal's egg lengthened. Inside, faint scrabbling grew louder each dusk. Melisandre spent long hours murmuring Valyrian verse, palms hovering inches above the shell, eyes half closed. Daenerys allowed it, trusting but wary. Tension shifted from suspicion of sabotage to wonder at possibility. Some lords began to whisper of a compromise, a dual monarchy, dragon and dragon together, wolf as steward. Yet precedent was thin, and the faith's high septon, arriving late, cautioned that two heads might rend a body. Jon met Sansa in a garret overlooking the outer bailey. They spoke softly, sister and brother reunited amid storms of state. Sansa's eyes, clear and keen, missed little. "You are pulled between loyalties," she said. "Yes," he admitted, "between heart and realm. Follow both," she advised. "But chain neither." He frowned. "Meaning?" "Love Daenerys. Support the prince's cause if just, yet keep your vows to the North's welfare. Your truth alone will matter when the council splinters." "Why?" Jon nodded, though the path she described looked thin as ice in spring. 3 weeks after the council began, the last of the convoys from Old Town arrived. Among them traveled Ser Baelor Hightower, famous for prudence. He addressed the assembly, endorsing whichever ruler pledged reconstruction of burned granaries and protection of lorekeepers in the citadel. Daenerys promised funds, Aegon promised neutral scholarships. Baelor sat again, satisfied neither yet displeased none. That evening found Jon and Aegon walking the beach where they first parleyed. No guards followed, their absence itself a symbol. Moonlight traced twin footprints beside the tide. Aegon spoke first. "When I was a boy in the free cities, I dreamed Westeros would greet me with trumpets and rose petals. Now I find more thorns than petals." "It's a hard land," Jon said. "Worth loving despite." Aegon skipped a stone. "I see why they trust you. You speak plain." Jon watched the stone hop twice. Sink. Plain truth cuts deeper than Valyrian steel sometimes. Aegon's shoulders slumped. "If the council crowns me, will she bow?" Jon stared at the restless water. "She said she would." "And will you?" Jon lifted his eyes to moonlit clouds. "Duty is heavier than crowns." They walked on. The hush between them seemed companionable, until Aegon halted. "I have dread." Jon faced him. "The prince said, ruling with mercy is easy a fortnight in. Harder when the first rebellion flares. I fear I'll misstep, spill blood that stains all I've built." Jon nodded slowly. "Then remember every drop spilled tonight trying to prevent that future. Let the memory guide your temper." "He," Aegon exhaled. "You would make a better hand than king." "Hands cannot be bastards," Jon reminded wryly. A smile touched Aegon's mouth. "Bastards built half the wonders across the world." They resumed walking, two silhouettes, until the sea erased their tracks. Inside Storm's End, final preparations approached. The council would vote, secretly, by carved tokens dropped into twin urns. Dragon black, dragon red. Tyrion devised the system, Brienne oversaw the urns, and Davos attested fairness. The night before the vote, wind held its breath. No tavern song broke the stillness, no raven flew. Even the sea seemed lulled. In her chamber, Daenerys knelt beside the egg. With a thin musical crack, a wedge of shell fell away. A sliver of green gold eye peered at her, bright, sharp, alive. Emotion flooded her so swift, she thought her heart would burst. She lifted the egg gently to the window. Starlight bathed newborn scales within, which shimmered like wet jade. A small hiss escaped the hatchling. Then another sound from outside, wings heavier than ravens. She looked up to see Drogon perched on the sea tower pinnacle, head cocked. In his throat rumbled a low croon as though he welcomed a sibling. Daenerys pressed a kiss to the shell. "Rhaegal," she whispered, tears slipping free. Behind her, Melisandre appeared as silently as a thought. "One life for one realm," she intoned. "All that is given returns, in fire made flesh." Daenerys turned, suspicion warring with joy. "Aegon, thou?" "The Lord of Light balances scales," Melisandre said. "A dragon reborn signals a dawn. But dawn is edged to darkness. Should it fail to rise, darkness claims both sky and soul." Daenerys clutched the hatching egg tight. "I will ensure dawn." "Then heed the flame," Melisandre urged. "Only the true prince who has promised may ride beside you. Ask the fire which face it shows." She vanished into shadows, leaving Daenerys with more questions than answers. Yet when she looked again at Rhaegal's emerging snout, she felt a fierce certainty bloom. Whatever tomorrow's urns chose, dragons would not be caged by tokens. Morning came silver blue. The great hall brimmed with lords, ladies, and captains. 2 urns stood side by side, one wrought of black iron, one of brass tinted red. Tokens carved as tiny shields lay in bowls before the dais. Each shield's front blank, its back etched with a server's mark to deter counterfeits. Gendry hammered thrice for silence. "Choose now, and know this choice binds you. Break faith in storms, and will remember." One by one they approached. Lady Sansa first. North went to black urn. Lady Edmure next. Her token hovered, then clinked into red. Arianne deposited hers red. Baelor, Hightower, black. Asha Greyjoy tossed her shield lazily into black and winked at both claimants. Robin Arryn dropped his black with trembling fingers. Lords of the Reach scattered tokens like seeds. Some here, some there. Jon crossed arms, expression unreadable. Daenerys' pulse thundered. Aegon's hands remained at his sides, knuckles white. At last, all tokens lay hidden. Brienne sealed lids. Davos, Tyrion, and Connington carried urns to a long table. They pried them open under every eye. Tokens spilled in clinks that echoed as if striking hidden vaults of history. Counts began. Black. 1. Black. 2 dough. Red. 1 chow. Black. 3. Red. 2 wow. The tally crawled. Sweat purled on brows. At 24 each. Hush. Turned to held breath. 2 tokens remained. Tyrion drew the next. Black. Connington's trembling hand reached for the last. He lifted it, reversing it slowly. Red dot. Tai dot I. Murmurs swelled like rising surf. Gendry frowned at the rows of tokens. "Even," he announced. By charter agreed, the Storm Lord cast's deciding voice. Gasps rippled. Gendry's brow furrowed deeper. He had not anticipated the weight. He looked at Daenerys, her violet eyes alive with plea and promise. Then at Aegon, amethyst steadfast, wrapped in that echo of Rhaegar. The hall faded. He saw a forge in Flea Bottom, bastards at his side hammering scrap into shapes of hope. He remembered marching with Jon, the king who legitimized him, and sailing with Daenerys' fleet against the dead. He remembered Arya's laughter on a snowy night, his hammer lofted beside hers. He remembered, too, the kindness of strangers whose names he never asked, who died unmarked while highborns quarreled. Gendry stepped to the urns. He lifted a single plain token from a reserve bowl. With slow purpose he held it aloft. "I cast my vote," he said, voice reverberating off stone. "For the realm entire." Then he closed his fist and placed the token, not into black nor red, but on the table between them. A stunned silence settled. He turned to the assembly. There will be no singular crown while I draw breath. The storms we weather are bigger than any one lineage. Let the wolf stand king consort, the dragons reign together as queen and king. Two seats forged to one purpose: rebuild, not ruin. Uproar surged. Shock, anger, shouts of heresy. Gendry hammered again. Hear me. I propose a bond of rule. Queen Daenerys Stormborn, King Aegon VI, bound in council, under steward Jon of House Stark. A ruling triad: ice, fire, dawn. Men shy. Pandemonium roared. Aegon stared wide-eyed. Daenerys looked to Jon, conflict warring with wonder. Jon stepped forward. Such rule has no precedent, he said. Then we write new chapters, Gendry retorted. Lords bellowed. Field captains argued. Yet amid the chaos, small folk envoys, bakers, sailors, shepherds brought in by Davos for witness, began to cheer. Their applause started softly, then grew, echoing off vaulted beams. The lords faltered, hearing the common voice swell. Daenerys laid the hatching egg gently into a cradle borne by Missandei, then strode to stand beside Aegon. She looked at him, really looked, seeing not an enemy but a mirror tilted differently. Will you forge peace with me? Aegon swallowed. I will. They clasped hands. Jon moved to their side, feeling the weight of unseen chains slip free, though others tightened. Ghost appeared, tail waving slightly. The only wolf who relished crowds. Melisandre watched from the shadows, a small smile touching lips that had known too many pyres. Yet not all welcomed compromise. From the rear benches Strickland rose, face thunderous. The Golden Company sells you victory, not committees. He gestured, and captains rose as well, hands on sword hilts. Connington's command to stand down cracked like a whip, but half the Sellswords ignored him. Unsullied spears snapped into readiness. Dothraki seized Arrax. Tension rose hotter than forge fire. Gendry hefted his hammer. Enough war, he roared, stepping before Strickland. Stand down or taste storm steel. Strickland's eyes flicked to the rabbiting Sellswords backing away from unsullied wall. His jaw worked. The company will honor the prince's will, he said finally, though bitterness soured every syllable. Connington exhaled shaky relief. Gradually blades sheathed. Murmurs shifted to acceptance like gravel smoothing under tide. The Triad Pact, though fragile as new glass, stood upright on the anvil of that moment. 3 days later, under a sky the color of promise, Daenerys, Aegon, and Jon stood upon Storm's End highest parapet, overlooking banners newly stitched with a sigil uniting dragon heads, entwined around a deery wolf rampant beneath a rising sun. Drogon swooped overhead. Beside him a small green-gold dragon flapped unsteady wings before landing on the queen's shoulder with chirping chirp. She named him Rhaegal Reborn, though his hue was paler. Wings tipped bronze, proof the future wrote its own shades. In the courtyard below, lords knelt, not all, but enough to signal tide turned. Tyrion dispatched ravens bearing news of the Triad. Sansa prepared the north for winter-grain convoys financed jointly. Asha spread word to Ironborn captains of reparations funded by new taxes on silk traffickers, rather than reaving. As dawn broadened, Daenerys raised her voice over the wind. We name this day the Dawn Accords. Let swords lie idle while we mend field and hearth. Aegon echoed her, vowing to rebuild libraries, roads, and trust. Jon swore stewardship, promising to balance Dragonfire with the cool reason of the north. Grey Worm and Connington clasped forearms before all, sealing the army's peace. Melisandre watched flame-lit banners flutter. In her gaze burned embers of satisfaction and warning, intertwined like twin serpents. She whispered to the breeze. The song is not ended, but a verse of hope is sung. Far off, on a lonely hill beyond the reach of castle arches, an old man in merchant's gray lowered a spyglass. Beside him lingered shadows in black cloaks trimmed with rose-gold thread. The old man smiled thinly. Hope is a market too, he murmured. And markets can be cornered. He turned toward the west where new storms gathered, full of silent lightning. But for that hour, the realm beneath Storm's End breathed as one, tasting at last the hush that follows, when swords lift to salute rather than to sever, when banners of rival hues weave into one tapestry, and when the first fragile light of peace gleams on steel, polished for parade, not for battle. Okay. The soft hush before sunrise wrapped Storm's End in violet gloom, yet within its walls the forge of the realm's rebirth already rang. Sparks flew from anvils in the lower bailey where Gendry's smiths beat captured blade iron into plowshares, engraved with a braided sigil, 3 dragon heads coiled round a direwolf under a dawning sun. The design was new enough that apprentices copied it from chalk sketches nailed above each station, but soon it would be stamped on every wagon axle and hinge destined for the shattered riverlands. Jon Snow watched the hammers fall from a gallery above, arms folded against the crisp wheeled breeze. Night lingered in the pits beneath his eyes, a souvenir from parchments tall as tower books that charted roads to mend, aqueducts to cleanse, tithes to forgive. For 3 weeks the Dawn Accords had held, not merely in ink, but in sweat and steel. Wells reopened along the Reach Road, guarded by mixed patrols of Unsullied and Golden Company veterans, who now wore brown linen badges, rather than bright sellsword stripes, brown like earth, the Triad's quiet symbol for labor. Behind Jon the steps creaked. Arya ghosted to his side, unhooded this time, her hair blowing loose and wild as the sea. She took the balustrade with one booted foot, drank the scent of hot iron, and said, "Hard to believe hammers can drown war cries." He offered half a smile. "They ring louder in the long run." "Perhaps." She eyed the plowshare brand. "Doesn't look very stark." "It isn't meant to. The North remains the North, but this," he gestured, "is for all." Arya rotated a throwing dagger between nimble fingers, silver flickers mirroring forge light. "All can still bleed, Jon. Last night I shadowed 2 sailors who paid mercenaries to slip poison into Lord Baelor Hightower's wine. They belong to that shadow market you've yet to name. I'd dispatch them, but for every pair we catch, another slips free. Then Zero." Jon's jaw tightened. "Did you find their master?" "Merely his coin." Bravos, he stamped, but the mint marks matched none in the Iron Bank registry Sam sent me. Counterfeit to muddy the scent. Jon exhaled. "We'll dig deeper. Good work." A horn sounded at the outer gates. 3 sharp blasts. Royal entry. Jon's gaze lifted over rooftops to see riders cresting the wet stone causeway. At their head shimmered a green-bronze hatchling no bigger than a deer, wings beating awkwardly, tail whipping the air for balance. Rhaegal Reborn announced his arrival with a piping shriek. Half chirrup and half thunder. Behind him rode Daenerys in silver-scaled armor, cloak pinned by a jade brooch in the hatchling's likeness. A chorus of cheers spilled from stonemasons on the curtain wall. Workers dropped chisels to wave. Jon caught himself smiling in spite of weighty thoughts. The dragonet's clumsy loops over the yard were undeniable proof the world was young again, and might be shaped better than before. He descended the stair 2 at a time to meet her. When Daenerys swung down from her saddle, their eyes locked with the familiarity of shared battlefields and whispered nights. She set a gloved palm on his chest. "The Rivergate Dam holds," she reported, breath pluming. 6 fishing villages safe from flood, and carp already spawned by the thousands. "Good tidings for once," Jon said. "Good, but not enough. The small council convenes within the hour." "Ben?" He nodded. Aegon arrived at dawn. Bran's raven flew in from Winterfell 2 nights past with the maester's census. The true cost grows clearer. The cost surely did, though swords slept. Hunger gnawed. Harvest fields sown in the first thaw now sprouted. But storehouses still yawned half-empty. The Triad needed coin, grain and stone in terrifying volumes. Worse, whispers grew that the Lannisport cabal, elders of the fractured Westerlands merchant guilds, funneled saboteurs north to cripple those lifelines. Tyrion chased one money trail after another, yet like rivers under a karst, the silver vanished before daylight reached it. In the long hall, Gendry had seated for government. A polished oak table waited beneath cloth-draped maps. Aegon stood already at the head, deep in quiet debate with Princess Arianne. He wore riding leathers still smeared by coastal sand, and his signet glimmered fresh-cut. A dragon coiled round a sunburst. His gaze brightened when Jon and Daenerys entered. He broke off his words and inclined his head. "Storm's End greets its triad," he said. His voice carried less flourish these days. Hard travel through the Dornish marches had scraped some gilding off his courtly tones, leaving something leaner and truer. Jon sank onto a bench opposite Tyrion, who leafed through vellum. The dwarf's braces were undone. Hair unkempt, eyes alight with manic deductions. "North grain projections?" Jon asked. "Better than we feared, worse than we need," Tyrion answered, sliding a ledger. Sansa coaxed a third again from winter barley using ash-lime compost, but transport remains choking the neck of the bottle. The King's Road bridges are rotted. Half will collapse if a wagon train rattles over. Aegon tapped the map. "Dell, we have stonemasons from the Westerlands ready under contract. Send them north." Gendry shook his head. "Can't pay them yet. Smith's Guild holds their line pending settlement of Lannisport debts." Daenerys set both palms on the table. "Then we settle it." "What is the figure?" Tyrion raked curls from his forehead. 20,000 golden dragons, give or take 5. Jon whistled low. "We don't have 5. "No," Tyrion agreed. "But the Royal Mint does when we restrike the coinage standard. I propose we call in all pre-war stags and dragons, melt them, and back new triad crowns with ironwood bonds. We print grain receipts guaranteed by Winterfell's harvest. It bolsters confidence and frees specie to pay the masons." Gendry frowned. "Want people hoard old coin anticipating its rarity?" "Only collectors," Tyrion retorted. "Common folk will prefer fresh currency accepted for tithes." Aegon considered. "Issue an edict making old coin redeemable at par for 6 months, then invalid. That pressures exchange." Tyrion snapped fingers. "Exactly." Jon rubbed his temples. "Minting alone takes time. We still face sabotage. 2 nights ago 3 river barges burned near Maidenpool. Grain bound for Gulltown." Daenerys' gaze flared. "Any sign who lit them?" Arya emerged from the archway's shadow. No one had heard her enter. "I found crossbow string of sea worm sinew at the site. Rare, used by Valeman smugglers plying Tidewatch caves. But the same sinew sells in Bravos too. Threads keep crossing the narrow sea." Tyrion's eyes narrowed. "Bravos again. Either the Iron Bank or pretenders using its name." Aegon's voice dropped to a chill. "Perhaps both. The masters of coin lend to all sides. They profit when realms totter, then pay for rescue." Daenerys said, "If the Iron Bank finances dissidents, we must confront them." Tyrion coughed a dry laugh. "Confront how? Marching on Bravos would drown our cause in sea graves. Better expose their hand publicly and rally Free City rivals." Arianne leaned forward, copper earrings chiming. "The Triarchs of Volantis still smolder over Bravos seizing Myrish loan routes. If proof lands on their tables, they might choke Iron Bank ledgers by freezing trade convoys." Jon nodded slowly. "Proof we do not yet have." "Not yet," Arya echoed, eyes shining with faint mischief. "But I may find it. A certain temple in Bravos owes me favors." Daenerys frowned. "The House of Black and White?" Arya neither confirmed nor denied. She only slipped back into shadows, leaving the council to weigh her unspoken promise like an unseen blade, held to a beating heart. That night Jon walked the moondeck outside his quarters. Below, the castle lights guttered, and beyond the walls, the encampments had shrunk. Many Golden Company troops redeployed to rebuild roads, unsullied companies stationed as peacekeepers in 3 provinces, Dothraki scouts patrolling grain lines. Yet a skeleton guard remained, and their campfires glowed like scattered embers on damp heath. Ghost lay at Jon's feet. Jon stroked the wolf's fur as he watched Rhaegal's hatchling silhouette perched on a turret across the courtyard. Drogon nestled nearby like a towering shadow. wings sheltering the younger dragon from wind. Jon marveled at the tenderness of the enormous beast. The unlikely parental instinct echoed his own worries. If these dragons represented a fragile new dawn, every saboteur's torch threatened to usher night. Steps approached. Aegon joined him, cloaking tight. Salt tang clung to his hair. For a time they watched the dragons in companionable silence. "Do you trust the hatchling's presence in Storm's End?" Aegon asked at length. "Safer here than on the road," Jon answered. "High walls, many eyes." "Eyes sometimes close," Aegon murmured. "I dreamt of a hooded falcon stealing green fire from the tower." He shook the omen away. "Superstition. Yet my tutor once said politics is half dream, half nightmare." Jon's breath steamed. "I've learned nightmares need only one waking fool to make them flesh." Aegon inclined his head. "Would you counsel me on a personal matter?" Jon turned. "If I can. I plan to ask Daenerys for formal betrothal, to weld our claims beyond signatures. But I would not force the question. I care for her, yet respect must precede union." "Then?" Jon absorbed the words with careful neutrality. A month ago, such a proposal might have cleaved his heart. Now he felt only the tired acceptance of a man who has given his oath to something larger than blood or desire. "If it secures peace and you both wish it, who am I to counsel against?" Aegon studied him. "She loves you still." "She loves the realm more," Jon replied, surprising himself with the certainty of it. "And so must we." Aegon sighed. "Then tomorrow, after council, I will speak." Jon nodded. "Choose a quiet place. She dislikes spectacle when hearts stand naked." Then they parted without further words, two branches from the same storm-tossed tree bending in different winds. At dawn, Arya slipped away on a fast galley bound for Bravos. Disguised as a cabin boy with cropped hair and salt drying on sun-dark cheeks. Only Jon, Sansa, and Daenerys knew of her mission. Word would spread, of course. Spies breed in every holdfast, but speed might outrun rumor. The council immersed itself in mint details. Alloy ratios, die patterns, engraver appointments. Tyrion and Gendry drafted a decree naming the new coins Morning Stars, stamped with the Triad's sigil on one face and a sheaf of barley on the other. The barley design was Jon's insistence, a reminder that bread outweighed gold. For smaller denomination they chose sparrows, bronze coins bearing a soaring lark. The High Septon approved, claiming the faith had long revered the humble bird. Meanwhile, Daenerys dispatched Missandei and Grey Worm north by sea with the first grain convoy, escorted by Asha's longships under banners of truce. The unsullied commander left reluctantly but without complaint. Loyalty, once sworn to him, was a line etched in obsidian. The convoy's departure drew watchers. Strickland's lieutenants, Westerland's merchants, even a masked red priest, who muttered prayers in Valyrian as each ship hoisted sail. When the last hull slipped beyond the headland, the man vanished. No one could later recall his face. Weeks turned. The Dawn Accords lived, battered but unbroken. Minting presses clanged in Lannisport and Dragonstone both, stamping morning stars that spread fast along markets, hungry for any promise of stability. In the Riverlands, millers accepted the new bronze sparrows in exchange for flour. In White Harbor, stevedores loaded casks of northern oats bound south. Yet with success, sprouted resentment. Some Westerlands lords decried the devaluation of old coin. Their coffers, once bursting, now seemed less golden. Rumors arose that Sir Daemon Liddon plotted with Crakehall knights to seize mint wagons. When confronted, he protested innocence, yet his armorers worked overtime sharpening boar spears. Tyrion's spies confirmed secret musters across rough hills west of the Sunset Road. On a slate-gray morning as gulls wheeled over the battlements, Daenerys stood in her solar reading Gendry's report on Liddon's levies. The fire crackled at her back, but her skin felt chilled. The hatchling Rhaegal dozed on a perch nearby, wings twitching. Drogon soared above the clouds this hour, leaving her without his thunderous comfort. A knock preceded Tyrion. He bowed with customary flourish, then climbed onto a chair, rolling a scroll across his lap. Bad news tastes better early. Tell me, she said. Gold cloak deserters. He tapped the parchment. 60 veterans vanished from King's Landing last week. My informant fears they pledged to Lydon. More troubling, they carried with them 4 barrels of wildfire. Daenerys felt her stomach clench. She'd thought the last of the pyromancer's stock accounted for, but King's Landing's underbelly was full of forgotten cellars. No dragonfire must meet wildfire. We must intercept them. Menderenshaller. Jon rides north tomorrow to inspect bridge work. If he detours west, he could... No. Jon has enough burdens. She straightened. I will go. Drogon can cover more ground than any horse troop. I'll bring Aegon and a company of Unsullied. We confront Lydon before his tinderbox sparks. Tyrion shifted. Publicly or discreetly? Public first. If he bends, the realm sees mercy. If not, Drogon's shadow speaks louder than decrees. Tyrion sighed. A queen astride dragon, approaching a rebellious lord who hoards wildfire. What could go wrong? She allowed a thin smile. Trust me. The flight across the stormlands unfurled in whipping gusts. Rhaegal perched secure between Drogon's shoulder spines, still tiny but eager, chirping whenever sunlight flashed across river loops. Below, Aegon rode at the head of 300 Unsullied marching in arrow-straight columns. The journey should have taken a week by horse, but Drogon covered it in 3 dawns. Lydon's seat, deep den, squatted between pine-clad ridges west of the Sunset Road. Its curtain walls mottled by lichen and war's neglect. When Drogon's silhouette etched across the morning, cattle stampeded, and farmers knelt in muddy fields. Daenerys circled once, then settled the great dragon on a ledge above the gatehouse. Rocks crumbled beneath his talons. Rhaegal flitted to a parapet, hissing at startled gulls. Inside the yard, armored men scrambled. Daenerys descended ropes to the rampart and strode across creaking planks to the inner court. Her silver braid whipped behind her, steel boots clanging. Lord Daemon Lydon emerged from the keep in gilded plate, boar tusks curling from his helm. Sweat slicked his brow despite the chill. He bowed stiffly. Your Grace honors my humble den. She held his gaze. Why muster spears without Triad sanction? He gestured broadly. Smile brittle. Bandits on the roads. I protect my folk. Bandits do not require wildfire. Color fled his cheeks. Old stores. Harmless display. Show me the barrels. His mouth worked. She heard steps. Aegon entering beside Connington. Aegon's hand lay on swordfish, the Valyrian blade gifted by Volantine smiths. Cousin. He greeted Lydon softly. When I sailed into Blackwater Bay, I did so trusting Westerosi honor. Do not break that trust today. Lydon's eyes flicked to the battlements where unsullied helms now bristled. Very well. He led them down stone steps into a cellar carved of rough conglomerate. Torches guttered. 4 bronze-banded barrels sat on sledges. One wept green sap at a cracked seam. Daenerys inhaled wildfire's acrid bite. Memories of burning cinders raining over Meereen knifed her. You will surrender these to my pyromancer's guild envoys who arrive by nightfall. Lydon stiffened. And my coin? You owe the realm restitution for endangering it. He spat. The realm owed my forebears recompense when Tywin's wolves burned our harvest. Where was restitution then? Rage flashed in Daenerys, not at the grievance, but at its timing. The wheel spins grief upon grief. Shall we add more bodies to prove it? Aegon stepped forward, voice velvet but laced with iron. Lord Daemon, pledge your spears to rebuild the Sunset Road. Contract your masons to the ironwood bridges. In return, the crown remits half your debts and supplies seed grain. Choose blood or clay. Nanero. Lydon's jaw worked. Green light licked the cellar gloom. Finally, he bent knee. Clay, then. But remember who knelt first when others will not. Daenerys touched Rhaegar's silver token at her throat. I will remember. She departed deep den that evening, barrels safely loaded in iron cages beneath Drogon's belly. wildfire bound for sealed vaults on Dragonstone. Rhaegal soared behind, daring new drafts, his cry bursting joy through clouds. Yet beneath Daenerys' relief coiled deeper unease. One rebellious lord quelled, but in his stubborn glare she had glimpsed the next 100 waiting their moment. While Daenerys managed Western Tinder, Jon's party traveled the King's Road. Bridge work crews hammered pilings into the Green Fork, while bargemen shouted over saws. Off-duty, Jon walked among tents collecting stories. Wives gone to fever, children to winterbite, sons to the wars. He listened, promised grain, delivered planks himself when wagons mired. Such acts sowed faith. Yet one dusk as he returned to camp, he found smoke not from cook fires but burning wagons at a hamlet east of the road. Riders fled at sight of his banner, a direwolf embossed over dawn's sun. Jon loosed arrows, but the assailants vanished into reeds. He dismounted before charred corpses, 2 carpenters he had eaten with at midday. Anger pulsed ice through his veins. Inspecting tracks, he noted odd hoof shapes, too small for Westerosi horses. Dornish or Free City stock, perhaps. Ghost-nosed a print, growling. Jon followed the trail into a thicket, where he found a crude charm of straw and cloth hanging from a branch. 3 coin effigies bound by black thread, pierced by boar tusks. A merchant's curse, meant to strike fear into tax collectors. He pocketed it grimly. When he penned his report to Storm's End, he warned, "Sabotage turns deadlier. Enemy shifts from noble revolt to shadow warfare." He pleaded for the newly formed Dawn Guard, selected unsullied Dothraki outriders and Northern Rangers, to escort every work crew. Back in the capital, Tyrion convened a clandestine meeting with Melisandre beneath Storm's End in a forgotten cistern, where candles reflected off still water like soul fires. He laid coins, ledgers, and intercepts before her. "Every time we close one purse, another opens. You speak of shadows. Can your embers reveal whose hands weave them?" Melisandre studied a silver sigil coin minted decades earlier bearing the Lion of Casterly Rock. "These plots root deeper than coin. Some hearts fear the dragon's return will burn their sins to ash. They strike first." Tyrion's gaze sharpened. "I am a Lannister and have sinned with the worst. Yet my kin's gold lines half the realm's coffers. I will expose them if need be, name them." "The great must name themselves," she answered cryptically, then pressed his palm to her choker, the ruby pulsing. Images flickered behind Tyrion's eyes. Ships under black sails, slipping into dusk. A gilded rose wilting upon a pyre. A lion's paw raking parchment that bled green flame instead of ink. He staggered back, breath ragged. "What in the 7 hells?" "Visions," she whispered. "Clues. The rest is choice." Mendermasand. Tyrion left the cistern shaken yet resolved. He would sail to Lannisport, confront guildmasters, cut roots with his own dagger if need be. He presented the plan to the Triad the next night. Daenerys hesitated. "You risk assassination." But Tyrion only bowed ironically. "Assassins require coin, and I intend to seize it before they spend." Aegon approved. "Connington will accompany you with 100 Dawn Guard." Tyrion smirked. 100? I may snap the purse strings and still need both hands to lug them. Jon sighed. "Take 200. The dwarf winked. "Such luxurious overkill, your majesties." By the second moon of the dawn accords, change sprouted like spring weeds. At Old Town, Archmaesters recorded the year as 307 after Aegon conquest, designating it the Year of Dawn. In far-flung hill villages, charmed by the phrase, folk painted suns on barns beside 7-pointed stars. Yet while suns rose, eclipses brewed. A letter arrived from Braavos, Arya's hand, written in code known only to Sansa and Jon. Deciphered, it revealed, Iron Bank holds no stake. Merchant Cabal operates from a private syndicate called the Argent Circle, comprised of exiled Westerlands, Tiroshi Dai lords, and Braavosi spice factors. Their goal: keep Westeros disunited to drive interest rates skyward, then buy debts for a pittance. Arya pursued a ledger hidden under Titan's nose. She would send proof soon. The news emboldened the Triad. They issued a joint proclamation: interest on reconstruction loans capped at fair rate. Any lender exceeding it forfeits claims inside Westeros. The decree angered not only the Argent Circle but lawful moneylenders, yet common folk cheered. Sunrise markets in Gulltown minted tokens reading, "The realm is not for sale." Retaliation came swift. In the Reach, sausage casks bound for Storm's End burst, releasing thousands of beetles bred to destroy flour stores. Only quick action by Maester cleansers prevented famine. In the Vale, a bridge collapsed after midnight sabotage, tossing 3 wagons of ironwood into the Snakewater Gorge. Robin Arryn wept for the dead teamsters, then issued bounty on saboteurs. But the worst blow struck at sea. Grey Worm's convoy nearing White Harbor with second harvest oats encountered a storm curiously localized. No other ship in the flight saw dark clouds until lightning cracked. A bolt ignited tar barrels that saboteurs had lashed under deck. Disguised as bilge weight, fire raced. 2 ships burned to waterline. Longboats rescued most, but 80 souls died. Among them Missandei's scribe apprentice, a girl of 13 whose laughter had brightened every watch. Grey Worm's grief traveled north with the wounded, as raw as salt-rubbing flesh. Upon hearing, Daenerys withdrew to the sea tower with her dragons. For 3 days, smoke trailed from Drogon's nostrils like storm banners. Some feared the queen would mount him and lay waste to half the coast. Jon visited her each night, speaking quietly of temper and justice. Eventually, silence thawed. She emerged on the dawn of the 4th day, silver braid glinting like drawn steel, and summoned a council. "No more half measures," she declared. "We hunt the Argent Circle at its heart." Aegon nodded, retrieving a new map Arya had smuggled via Crow. The floor plan of a Braavosi counting house on the Sweetwater Canal, seal of a lotus. "This is their vault, called the Lotus Pool." Arya reports a ledger with improving their sabotage. Jon cracked knuckles. "We can't launch armies into Braavos, but we can slip in a spear point." Tyrion, newly returned bruised but triumphant from Lannisport, grinned. A spear point bearing a wolf's face, a lion's cunning, and a dragon's flame. He produced from his pouch the Rose Lion coin Lorelei had carried. If we slip a spark into their powder stores, the explosion is their own doing. Thus codenamed Operation Lotus Dawn was born. Arya would lead a small team of faceless allies, inserting by night through Canal Underpass. Jon volunteered to accompany, but Daenerys forbade him. The realm cannot lose its steward in a spy jaunt. Instead, she sent Grey Worm, still raw and searching for outlet. Aegon countered with his own addition. Lyra Sand, an acrobat spy of Dorne rumored to twist through arrow slits. Tyrion, despite cracked ribs from a carriage fall, insisted on overseeing diversion logistics. Daenerys herself would wait aboard a lean fireship off the Braavosi coast. Drogon and Rhaegal poised to extract survivors. Gendry forged lockpicks of rare alloy. Sansa encoded fallback signals. Melisandre spent a night gazing into flame, then pressed a small ruby amulet into Grey Worm's palm. "When hope dims," she said, "let ember become beacon." The mission launched beneath new moon. 3 narrowboats, bearing Taroshi silk, docked at a Braavosi wharf, their papers forged. Inside bales hid Arya, Grey Worm, Lyra, and 5 unsullied chosen for Silent Step. Tyrion remained on a Cohoric sloop beyond the harbor, ready with bribe coin and false manifests. Within the counting house maze of vault halls, Arya moved like dark wind, changing faces thrice. Grey Worm guarded the rear, sword point like a compass always seeking threat. Lyra climbed rafters to disarm bell traps. At last, they reached the Lotus Pool vault door. Gold-plated, engraved with lotus petals folding inward. Arya knelt, inserted Gendry's picks, breathed once. Twice. Locks sighed open with almost sultry ease. Beyond, stacks of ledgers rested on pedestals alongside coffers. One book wore Westerland's red leather. Arya slid its clasp and hurriedly scanned. Column after column of transactions. Beryl sales to Lydon. Tyroshi dye vials to River Saboteurs. A draft listing, Stormcloud operation. Seaworm sinew. 300 bows. Proof enough. She slid the volume into Grey Worm's pack. Lyra sprinkled oil on the remaining ledgers. One spark from flint would ensure no rival narrative survived. Yet footsteps echoed from the hall. Unsullied melted into alcoves. Spears poised. 2 Braavosi guards entered, yawning, carrying wine cups. They froze at the Lotus vault ajar. Grey Worm struck first, pommel to temple, dropping one dead eye. The other whirled, raising alarm. Arya's knife silenced the cry, but blood splashed the ledger stacks, crimson on ledger black. The sight reminded Arya of her father's blood on Baelor's steps. Fury knotted in her gut. Time to leave. Lyra flicked Sparkstone. Flames curled over oil-soaked parchment. But as they slipped along canal exit, bells tolled. Somehow word had flown. Perhaps another guard glimpsed them. Perhaps invisible tripwire triggers had hummed silent. Within moments Braavosi sentinels converged, halberds flashing. Narrow alleys turned deadly dead ends. Arya veered right, Grey Worm left. Split to divide pursuit. Grey Worm's group reached the Sweetwater outflow unseen. But Arya and Lyra found a plank bridge blocked by spearmen. Arya hurled a smoke bomb Gendry had concocted. Fumes of chicken dung and pine tar choked the canal. They sprinted blind, leaping from railing into dark water. Outside the harbor, Daenerys paced her deck. Drogon sniffed the salty air, restless. On the mast, a lantern glowed signal green. Proceed to extraction. She mounted Drogon, heart hammering. Rhaegal clung behind like a spark. They soared over the Titan at midnight. Below, the counting house roof burned like a lotus aflame. Petals of smoke curving skyward. Screams and horns cluttered the night. She banked low over Sweetwater Canal Junction. There, Grey Worm waving crimson cloth. Drogon swooped, claws dipping. Unsullied grabbed harness loops and rose skyward. No sign of Arya. Daenerys wheeled back. On a tiled rooftop, a Braavosi officer pointed a crossbow at a fleeing figure. Daenerys urged Drogon to dive. The quarrel loosed, clipping the figure. It was Lyra, tumbling. Arya emerged from shadow, catching her hand. Crossbowmen reloaded but froze as Drogon's roar shredded the night. He dove off the roof into water. Daenerys extended, harness straps. Arya hoisted Lyra, both clung. In moments they cleared the harbor. Ballista bolts fired from watchtowers fell short. Outside the breakwater the fireship waited, Tyrion waving exaggeratedly from deck. Crew hauled the rescued aboard. Drogon and Rhaegal circled, until every face accounted for, then beat wings east into the star-dappled dark. Mission success, but at price. Grey Worm's thigh bore a deep gash, Lyra's shoulder the quarrel wound. Yet, the ledger survived. Arya placed it in Daenerys' hands. The queen read by deck lamp, each entry a blade. She met Arya's eyes. With this, the circle ends. Back in Storm's End a week later, lords and small folk crammed the great hall to witness judgment. Merchants named in the ledger were summoned by Raven, those who refused were proscribed. Tyrion laid the document before the assembly, line items recited aloud by Bran Stark, whose green-flecked eyes made lies wilt. When Bran spoke of the Stormfire plot, the convoy burning where Missandei's apprentice died, Grey Worm's face remained stone, yet tears slid unchecked. Daenerys rose. By dawn accords, those who finance bloodshed for profit are stripped of guild titles, lands and claims. Half their seized fortune reparations, half seed for orphanages. Aegon added, any found harboring proscribed merchants will answer for treason. Jon stood last, voice low, but carrying distance. Wars carve wounds that linger generations. Today we salt the soil such shadows grew from. Gendry hammered the butt of his warhammer once. Judgment sealed. The hall erupted in cheers, though some western lords slipped out, faces tight. They had lost coin this day. That night torches blazed along ramparts as the hatchling Rhaegal attempted his first breath of flame, managing only smoke puffs that made children laugh. Daenerys and Aegon watched. She allowed him to place a steadying hand on her arm. "Our betrothal can wait," he murmured. "Let the realm heal one skeleton before facing new ones." She nodded, grateful. Jon, leaning on stone far above, overheard and felt a quiet relief dip into his chest, then ebb. Leaving tidal flats of duty, Sansa joined him. She handed him a parchment from Maester Sam. Watchers at the wall report odd lights beyond the haunted forest. Ice mists swirling though midsummer neared. Jon frowned. "We fought the dead. Yet still the earth shivers." Sansa laid a hand on his sleeve. "One battle ends, another stirs. But you are not alone this time." "Then?" He looked across the yard at Daenerys, Aegon, Grey Worm, Arya, Bran, Tyrion, all threads in a new tapestry. "No," he agreed. "Not alone." Far in the east, the sky hinted pearl. Night's black lifted. On the horizon, the first narrow blade of dawn cut the clouds, gilding ramparts and dragon wings alike. The noise of forging hammers resumed in the courtyards below, rhythmic as heartbeats. And somewhere in the wilderness beyond maps, an old man crouched beside a dying campfire, warming hands scarred by trade ledgers, whispering into dark that silver still buys daggers, and dawn, no matter how bright, always casts a shadow. For now, though, the realm's forging continued, its anvil ringing with hope. K. Soft rain stitched the dawn sky when the raven-bearing Maester Samwell's parchment settled onto the ramparts of Storm's End. It shook water from its wings, cawed once, and waited while the watchman coaxed it into his palm. Moments later, the missive sped down the spiral stairs to Jon Snow's study. A small candlelit tower room crowded with bridge plans and grain ledgers. Jon slit the wax, eyes narrowing as the inked maps of the wall unfolded. Ghost lights above the gorge, dead elk found ringed in spirals, icy rime glazing stone even as midsummer wheat ripened far below. He found Daenerys in the practice yard sparring with Grey Worm. Rhaegal's green bronze wings fluttered excitedly over the fence, chirping at every clang of steel. Jon waited until sword points dropped, then handed her the map. As she read, sweat cooled to gooseflesh on her arms. "It can't be the others," she whispered. "The Night King died beneath Winterfell." "Death leaves echoes," Grey Worm said quietly. "In Astapor the slavers' cruelty lingered after they bled." "We ride north," Jon decided. "No banners, only a small column. If evil stirs, better we see it first." Daenerys nodded. "Aegon must stay to guard the realm. Take Rhaegal, he must learn cold air." Rhaegal flapped at his name. Smoke puffing from tiny nostrils. That noon the young dragon launched on his first true journey, wings beating unsteadily beside Drogon's massive sails until the larger dragon wheeled south, leaving Jon, Daenerys, Grey Worm, Arya newly returned from Braavos, and 100 Dawn Guard to thunder up the King's Road. They rode through hay-sweet valleys where children waved bronze sparrows in greeting, past river fords patrolled by mixed knights whose shields bore dawn sun sigils. Yet signs of hidden war scarred the road. 3 merchant corpses dangling from a tree, tongues hacked out and pockets turned. Nails pinned a warning to the trunk, gold clutched by dragons, steel claimed by lions. Tyrion's foes still prowled. At Harrenhal's smoking towers a courier found them. Lady Sansa's seal, direwolf stamped in ice. Westerland's banners mass outside Oxcross. The letter read, Lytton, Crakehall, Reynard and Rogue Sellswords. They march in 2 weeks. No numbers, only a postscript. Bran dreams of iron-shod shadows moving with them. Daenerys handed the parchment to Arya. Ride west. Find their numbers, their stores, their fears. Meet us at Winterfell. Arya's eyes glinted. Storm and steel. She vanished that night. slipping between tents like wind through reeds. 3 days later, Jon's column reached the neck. Fog clung to the causeway stones, and Rhaegal keened uneasily, small claws scrabbling at Jon's shoulder saddle. But as they crossed into the north, the fog tasted of old snow and something fouler, rot laced with frost. Ghosts' hackles bristled. Near Queen's Crown they found the first spiral. Ravens gathered on pine branches above a circle of elk antlers, thrust into frozen ground, their tips haloed with hoarfrost, though grass all around lay green. In the center lay a man's corpse, armored in patched plate, emblazoned with a crimson rose, a Reach deserter. His eyes were blue as glacier glass, yet no shimmering pupils like the dead of Hardhome. Only frozen emptiness. Arya's smoked glass dagger lodged in his throat, driven perhaps an hour earlier. She had passed this way before dawn. Grey Worm crouched beside the body, ruby talisman glinting. No magic animates this one now, but someone wishes to conjure fear of it. Daenerys stared at the spiral. So like the sigil the White Walkers once carved in corpses on the fist of the first men. A message. She breathed. To the south. Jon crushed snow between gauntleted fingers. Or an invitation. They pressed on. At the last hearth, they found young Lord Cragen Umber, guarding wagons laden with pine tar and pitch. For the wall, he explained, cheeks ruddy. Samwell's orders. If ice comes alive, we burn it. By full moon they reached Winterfell. Smoke streamed from repaired chimneys, and banners bearing the Dawn Sun Triad flapped alongside the direwolf. Sansa met them in the courtyard, red hair crowned with a circlet of weirwood silver. She hugged Daenerys first, surprising the queen, then turned to Jon. Bran waits in the Godswood, she said. He's seen things. They found the three-eyed raven beneath red leaves, whispering. Snow dusted Bran's shoulders, though the night air lay warm, his white eyes fixed somewhere beyond them. Ice wakes where men's greed unsettles it, he murmured. Old magic sleeps lightly in broken ground. Daenerys knelt. Can you guide us? Bran's gaze drifted to Rhaegal, perched awkwardly on the cracked parapet of the first keep, tail lashing in excitement. Dragon flame may seal what ice unseals, but beware, the flame that seals may also free. Grey Worm asked. Free what? Stone dragons, Bran breathed. And ghosts older than language. A chill coursed through Daenerys. Stannis had once tried to wake stone dragons on Dragonstone with king's blood. What ancient power hung beneath the wall's foundations? That night, council convened in the Great Hall. Jon, Daenerys, Sansa, Grey Worm, Maester Sam arrived by Raven flight from Castle Black, and Aegon's voice carried by glass candle from Storm's End. Sam spread sketches. Fissures on the wall's north face. Thin plumes of mist, venting as though the ancient ice were breathing. Brothers had sealed cracks with frozen mud, but more open daily. We think hot springs under the wall grow volatile, Sam said. Something stirs them. What force? Jon asked. Not the dead, Sam replied. Perhaps the living. Seeking relics. Daenerys recalled the merchant cabal's fixation on chaos. The Argent Circle. She wondered. A splinter, Sansa said. Arya's raven 2 days old. She follows a sellsword quartermaster named Bellicho the Mummer, ex-Golden Company. He buys explosives in Sisterton, rides west to Oxcross. Jon realized. They mean to strike the wall and blame us. Daenerys stood. Then we divide. Jon with Rhaegal flies to Castle Black. I march south with Grey Worm and the Dawn Guard to face the Westerland's host. Sansa's eyes flashed. And me. Hold Winterfell, Jon ordered. If either plan fails, this castle must stand. Next morning snowflakes the size of copper coins drifted, though the air remained autumn mild. Old magic indeed. Jon mounted Rhaegal, whose wings now spanned half a longship, and launched north with Sam, Ghost, and 20 rangers on sure-footed Garrons. The young dragon bucked turbulent currents over the shivering sea, yet steadied, emboldened by Jon's calm hand. Daenerys donned black plate, traced in dragonbone filigree, Drogon's skull emblem blazing on her breast. Grey Worm wore plain steel, ruby at his throat. They led 2,000 mixed spears west by torchlight, banners muted under cloth to hide numbers. Halfway to Deepwood Mud, Arya appeared, cloak ragged, eyes fever bright. "Belico's powder train splits here," she hissed. 50 wagons north on the Iron Man's road, 30 south to Oxcross. He rides with the southern lot. Daenerys' jaw clenched. "We intercept the north wagons. Grey Worm takes 600. I strike Belico myself." Grey Worm protested, but she raised a hand. "The wheel turns on swift decisions. Go." Grey Worm marched at dusk, unsullied shields whispering in the pines. Daenerys, Arya, and 100 Dothraki scouts cut southwest, hugging hills. Night painted frost on grass tips that glowed beneath the waxing moon. Meanwhile, Aegon confronted intrigue of his own. Storm's End received envoys from Old Town. Archmaester Vaelin, robed in parchment white, bearing a charter demanding custody of all newly hatched dragons for scholarly stewardship. A thinly veiled attempt to control Regal. Aegon refused politely, but Vaelin left whispering that knowledge suppressed breeds ruin. At sea, Tyrion's agents seized a Lyseni cog carrying alchemist casks marked with the crowned lion brand of Lannisport. Under torture, the Lyseni confessed. Casks destined for a fjord below the wall where miners would place them inside ice caves, collapse a span, launch legend of returning others. Fear-mongering for power. Tyrion's raven sped north, but Jon was already circling that very fjord. Rhaegal's keen eyes spotted skiffs unloading barrels. Jon swooped, and the dragon's first true flame erupted. A gout of greenish fire tinged gold. Skiffs exploded in boiling surf. Smugglers fled screaming into icy water. On the shore, rangers captured miners with rock blast sticks. Under Ghost's red glare, they spilled everything. Bellico's coin, assurances of Lannister restoration, promises of free plunder. Once King's Landing fell into panic. Jon destroyed the barrels, melting a swath of the wall's north face into shining glass. He worried the molten patch might weaken the structure, but Sam predicted the glassy frieze would harden stronger than before. Even so, they had seen only one head of the Hydra. Far south, near Oxcross, Daenerys closed on Bellico's convoy at dawn. Fog pooled in the meadow. Wagons creaked under tar-soaked canvas. Bellico the Mummer, gaunt with red stage paint slashed across his cheeks, strutted beside a brazen cannon cart, humming a sellsword tune. Dothraki arrows severed reins. Horses bolted. A spear slammed Bellico's foot to mud before he could flee. From the fog, Daenerys emerged on foot, cloak streaming. He laughed through pain. "Pretty dragon queen walks without her beast. Brave or foolish?" She drew no blade. "Your masters will fall. Yield powder. Face trial. Then saw. My masters." He spat. "House Lannister bankrolls fool's eye. But gold flows from deeper vaults. Vaelin's order, shadow priests of Myr. The very jade gates of Yi. War is a feast, and every empire brings forks." Arya's knife flashed. Bellico's stage paint mingled with blood. But he grinned still. Cut one puppet, two dance. Then he triggered a flint hidden in his palm. Flames shot along a powder trail. Daenerys hurled herself atop Arya as the nearest wagon blew. But Bellico vanished in the burst, bone, flesh, and plan alike consumed. Other wagons caught. Fire chased through fog. Dothraki scattered. Daenerys rose, whipping cloak to smother sparks. Arya coughed, hair singed. Only 3 wagons survived. Inside they found not gunpowder but scroll casings locked in lead. The writings, once cooled, revealed correspondence, coded, but bearing seals, a yielded rose, a shattered mask, a ring of maester links. They hurried east with the spoils to rejoin Grey Worm, whose Unsullied intercepted the northern convoy by ambush at Stony Shore, seizing 15 alchemist barrels. Dawn Guard scouts sighted Westerland's banners only hours behind. War hurtled toward Deepwood Motte. At Winterfell, Sansa drilled green levees. Bran's ravens watched coastlines. Word of Joan's victory at the fjord reached her. She allowed herself one relieved breath before couriers galloped in. Crackhall boars and Lidden tusks breach moat Kaelin's causeway, heading north. She summoned the smiths. Half-grown boys lined up for pikes. Girls nocked arrows taller than themselves. The north would not fall, because the south bled greed. On the wall, Jon met Maester Sam, amid ruined ice caves where molten rock still hissed. Rhaegal roosted overhead, warming the shivering rangers. Sam's studies of the lead scrolls taken from Lyseni Skiff revealed references to a society calling itself the Court of the Bleeding Star, an alliance of distant magisters chasing an ancient prophecy. Break dragon, freeze wolf, crown lion, anew. They believed felling the wall with fiery artifice would rouse forgotten powers to their side. We fight cultists drunk on tales, Jon muttered, and tales breed zealots. Sam replied, we must end the tale itself, prove fear false. Jon gazed along the ice horizon. Then we expose them where all can see, southwest of Deepwood. Motte Daenerys' host met Westerland's iron. Fog lifted to reveal 6,000 lions. Loden, Reynard Drox, red and gold banners stitched anew. Yet their lines bent around an empty space. Cracahall's boars absent, busy in the neck. Opportunity. Before dawn, Grey Worms unsullied struck the left flank with pikes silent and sure, while Dothraki screamed down the right. Daenerys, astride Drogon at last, swooped not with flame but thunder. Wing beats scattering horses, sending crossbow bolts wild. Rhaegal, smaller, but brave, breathed a gust that singed, but did not burn. She forbade wildfire of her own. Lidden's men faltered. When Grey Worm's vanguard captured the Crannog standard, they raised it upside down. Signal of feint. Hidden gates in the ground opened, and reed guerrillas surged, their marsh nets entangling hooves. Within heartbeats, the Westerland's line crumbled. Lidden tried to rally, but an arrow from Arya, who had stalked the ridge all night, pinned his cloak to a cart. He surrendered weeping. Daenerys dismounted before him. Honor lost to greed, she said. Will you rebuild it in chains or oaths? Lidden knelt. Oaths. Around him, other captains dropped swords. Victory cheers echoed through the dew, but Grey Worm pointed east. Black smoke rose where Crackhall tusks marched on Barrowton. No rest. Ravens flew. That evening, Sansa's forces at the neck clashed with Crackhall knights. Moonlight silvered spear points. Water oozed between flagstones where bodies fell. Just when the boars pressed hardest, Jon arrived aloft on Rhaegal. Ghost howling from the saddle. Dragonfire hissed into the moat, turning water to steam that blinded attackers. Northern horns blared. Knights broke. Through swirl of mist, Jon faced Sir Morton Crackhall. Your war ends, he shouted. The knight sneered, lifting a glass globe. Wildfire stolen from deep den. But Grey Worm's thrown spear struck his gauntlet. The globe slipped into water, sizzling harmless. Crackhall yielded. With both rebellions quelled, prisoners marched under guard to Winterfell's dungeons. Yet victory tasted of ash. Hundreds dead, wounded overflowing maester tents. Daenerys walked rows of cots, Rhaegal hopping behind, dropping charred rabbits at startled patients. Laughter stirred even among pain. In the Godswood the Triad met. Jon, Daenerys, Aegon arrived by raven-mounted sky palanquin and Sansatiatial. Bran watched from his weirwood throne. Wars of coin will not cease until coffers empty, Jon said. Aegon produced the coded letters. The Court of the Bleeding Star spreads from Yeti to Old Town. We hurt them, but root remains. Men are one. Daenerys set hand on heart. Then root, we must burn. Bran's eyes rolled white. When he spoke, voice layered with ancient wind. Far east at Ashai a shadow swells. Seek the bridge of shadow and dawn. There end the tale. A hush. Sam swallowed. Ashai is half the world away. Daenerys straightened. Then we sail at dawn. Dragons over Jade Sea. Jon and Sansa guard the north, Aegon the south. Jon grasped her fingers. "Come back." She smiled, a sunrise bending ice. "I will, my love. I owe the realm its dawn." Banshee. Grey Worm, Arya, Tyrion, and a slender force prepared to voyage. Rhaegal, almost full-winged now, would accompany Drogon across deserts unknown. As ships readied in White Harbor, Tyrion climbed the gangplank with a new ledger tucked under arm. Designed for a metal press able to mint 1,000 morning stars a day. "When we return," he mused aloud, "this realm may run on knowledge, not fear." Arya leaned on the rail, eyes fixed east. "Or on stories truer than those our enemies write." The flotilla slipped from harbor under aurora-tinted sky. On the highest mast flew a banner newly sewn by Winterfell's children. Wolf guarding twin dragons beneath a blazing sun breaking black clouds. Shores receded, breakers hissed, and ahead stretched the mystery of the world, wide as hope. Atop the battlements, Sansa watched until sails became gull-wing specks. Jon stood beside her, ghost nuzzling his gauntlet. Cold wind carried the scent of pines and furnace smoke. "A long road still," Sansa murmured. Jon nodded, gripping the rampart stone. "But for the first time in years the road leads forward, not back." Somewhere beyond horizon the old man of the Argent Circle received word of defeat. In lamplight he unfolded a weathered map, finger tracing to Ashai. He smiled, teeth thin as parchment. "Let the dragons come," he whispered. "Shadow has teeth sharper than flame." But on the sea, the dragons flew, and every beat of their wings scattered crows of doubt across a sky, brightening with possibilities yet unimagined.